We usually don't have our broadcast these early, but I think I mentioned during last Saturday stream I was planning on speaking about this, but there was a lot of you know stuff that came up to where I just said forget it. I don't think the whole stream is going to be about this, but you never know. Oh, look who finally appeared after a long, long hiatus. The great, the magnificent, the well missed Dio has returned. I think I don't even have to say any more words for the rest of the stream. He appeared and he took my breath away. Being reunited with him is, I mean, we don't even need Christmas this year after such an occasion like this has appeared. But as I was saying, so I had almost no desire to see the first Black Panther when it came out, and the reason for that was that was a character that I never really cared that much for, um, in any capacity. And there was this really weird thing where there were a lot of people. We're not going to say who they were, but you can you can draw some conclusions. Who went to see this film that didn't care about Marvel, the MCU, or even Black Panther the character before the movie came out. So I was really put off by this. I guess it was like jumping on the bandwagon. It's kind of like how when the Transformers movie came out, I was really excited for that because I liked Transformers previously, and then you have people who will just go and see that just because they see robots and they don't really, they don't actually care about the broader franchise or the stuff that started it. Um, so it wasn't something I eventually ended up seeing it on Disney Plus like a year ago. It was the last currently released MCU movie that I was willing to see, and because I had promised myself under no circumstances will I ever watch Captain Marvel. That is the only one out of those whole first three phases of the MCU. That is the only one that I will not watch ever under any condition. No sir, no Cerritos, nothing. But I thought it was all right regarding the first Black Panther, and I was really surprised by Boseman's passing. Again because he had a secret illness, and I became very curious as to what was going to happen in his absence. And then when they announced that they weren't recasting, there was this whole movement and people were protesting on Twitter and places like that. Um, and I gave my opinion on this before. I think like you're not going to see me make videos defending this point or arguing with people because I don't care enough about it to even start trying to have some kind of like thing of having to argue with everybody that disagrees. But it's hard for me to believe that if they got someone else to play T'Challa, you wouldn't have a bunch of the same people calling for a recast saying that the new person is bad, they're not as good. Um, and we've seen this happen with plenty of times where you've had multiple people play the same character. I mean, you can go online to this day and find Michael Keaton versus Christian Bale debates, or Keaton versus Affleck, or Bale versus Affleck, or Christopher Reeve versus Henry Cavill. I mean, they do this with pretty much any character that's been played by multiple people. They start debating and arguing about it. Yeah, Norton versus Rafalfo. And you know what? I made this point a while back. I said people are saying, "Oh, the MCU has recast characters before. What's the difference?" Well, the thing is, most of the characters they recast are not titular. Like they got rid of Norton left, couldn't negotiate whatever, and then he said he didn't want to play a franchise character or whatever. Um, but he was only in one movie, and then it's been Rafalfo ever since 2012. So you also can give the example of Terrence Howard, played War Machine in the first Iron Man. Then he was replaced by Don Cheadle. He was in one movie at the start, in that first phase. And he played by the same person ever since Iron Man 2. So a lot of and you know they've tried to invoke Thunderbolt Ross because he's getting played by apparently by Harrison Ford from now on. But even then, that's a character who you see for like maybe 2 scenes a movie, and like he mattered so little that he disappeared from the MCU for like 8 years between the first Hulk and Civil War. He was just gone. So a lot of the examples they give because they're like, oh, they recast characters. It's like, yeah, but the ones they recast, you've only usually seen one time, and they barely, or if you've seen them repeatedly, like with Ross, it's like it's a minor character. Um, and when they were giving the examples of like, you've had this many people play Spider-Man, you've had this, it's like, yeah, those are all different franchises. It's like, do you really think if they made because Garfield was fired after getting like not showing up to there was a whole saga that led to TASM three's downfall. But do you really think if Garfield was fired after TASM 2, they were still going to make TASM 3, with well, her character was gone, but like Sally Field and all the rest of the people that were in TASM to bring them back, but have a new actor play. No. So a lot of the recasts that they're talking about, like from these different characters, are when they do a whole new series. They just replace everybody. Is Red Hulk that necessary for a recast? I don't think the MCU will fall apart. They just killed off Ross. Red Hulk is not as significant. Like, here's the thing: a lot of Marvel comics work well because the main character has like a supporting cast that they interconnect with. But since the MCU is this big, huge universe, you pretty much have no character that you need, like you just can't move on without. So if they don't use Ross, like because he's like the person that hates Hulk, etc., they can just give his role to somebody at Shield, of that same person that hates Hulk and decides to become either they can make that because the MCU changes stuff if they want to. They made I'm forgetting the villain's name from Ant-Man and Wasp, but that character is a man in the comics and they changed it into a woman. Like, gender flipped it. So, they change stuff all the time. I don't think they would fall apart if they got rid of Ross. And it is going to be very jarring having like if you ever do a rewatch of the MCU, seeing this character show up in like 5 or 6 different movies played by the same person, all of a sudden it's Han Solo. I'm just saying whenever you have somebody that plays the same character over and over again, and then they suddenly stop and you switch it with another person, it's something that it can be off putting. Like watching Batman Forever and being told that, oh, this is the sequel to Batman Returns. You got the same person playing Alfred and the same person playing Commissioner Gordon, but now you have Val Kilmer instead of Keaton. It's like, that was weird. That did the first time I saw it take me out of the movie. And it was even more weird when they do a sequel to that and they keep the same actor as Robin, and everybody else comes back except for Kilmore, and he's replaced by Clooney. I said Kilmore, Kilmer. But you get the point that recast really only can work, in my opinion, if it's a new continuity where it's all everybody's played by a different person, or if it's after like one movie. And Boseman played T'Challa 4 times. And it's like people keep saying, "Oh, he only had one movie." Well, if you really think about it, and I haven't sat back and counted the screen time he had in Civil War, but he's a major part of that movie. That's his origin story. So when he gets his actual solo film, it's kind of like a part two or an actual, you know, how to explain this? Because of the focus that he gets in Civil War, it's not even just like, oh, he had this one movie and then he just tried it. It's like he played this character repeatedly with 2 major appearances, 2, kind of minor ones, admittedly with Infinity War and Endgame. But point is you still got used to him to some extent to where it can be jarring for someone who watches that stuff to then go to the second one again in this hypothetical if he was played by somebody else and be like, oh, that's the same character. And I'm sure they could get someone that looks like him and can, I guess, mimic the voice. They could get like a voice actor and dub it over. But it just, I don't think they were wrong for going the direction that they did. It's a really sad, horrible circumstance. Um, and it's being used by a lot of people to pounce on the film. So um, the movie opens up with, and I really wish I had seen it twice because I did want to go, scene by scene. I think instead I'll just kind of describe the things I like and then talk about the things I don't. Just I can't I can't do scene by scene. But anyways, in the absence of the Black Panther, nations around the world are trying to attack Wakanda, get their resources, et cetera, et cetera. And the movie actually surprised me because a lot of the Marvel stuff opens with the intro where it shows, like the various characters as it says Marvel. We get this cold open of Shuri trying to save her brother from some unknown illness that he has. Um, and we get to see her like live reaction to him passing away. And it was when it first came on screen, I was thinking it was like a trailer or something because I every other instance where I've seen something Marvel has made, again, at least for the MCU, it's you get the opening credits or you get the intro of the logo appearing, but it just cold opens with this scene, then it skips forward after that. Um, but I'm gonna say that there are a lot of people who were excited for Namor to be depicted in live action, and a lot of individuals who don't read comics treat him like trash. You're like, you guys think it's cool to have a villain that is naked and just is in water? Um, and this is actually a thing I really despise about people that don't read comics. They try to pretend that if there's a film adaptation of something, they can't make it cool in a different medium. Um, so, for example, when I was talking about how the canceled Raimi Spider-Man 4 is supposed to have Vulture, which, by the way, this last week we actually saw what that would have looked like. It was so cool. This person was like, "Well, what does Vulture even do? All he has is wings." Like, sure, but he can fly. He can go at all types of speeds. Um, and again, he's a threatening villain to Spider-Man because he can slam right into him like a torpedo coming out of the air. But Namor in this film is very intimidating. Every time he's on screen, I'm actually wondering how are they going to defeat him. And it got to a point where I actually was wondering if Shuri even could defeat him when he's showing up and able to use all of his water powers and um, just come out of the ocean and go back in. It's really intimidating, and even the visual image of like sinking Wakanda. I will go as far as to say that because people like to they all suck off Killmonger. I think he's probably um better than Killmonger as a threat in every way that I can think of currently. Again, I want to see the movie again before I completely draw my conclusion. But he was a really strong antagonist for this film, and he's actually kind of complex because he cares about his people. To where when one of them is was like fatally injured by Nakia, he asks her like who did this to you, and then closes her eyes after she passes. Um, it was a I don't know if I would say he gave the best performance out of the cast, but because I want to talk about Angela Bassett, but he was Coogler did a really good job with the writing on him. Um, and I think anybody that says Killmonger is better is, I guess, just blinded by I don't know, the nostalgia of the first movie. But yeah, really, really strong villain. Um, Sympathetic, but but still intimidating and complex. And Phase 4, as much flack as people are giving it, it has a lot of good villains. You had Green Goblin, you had Gore. Um, like I'm really surprised by how strong some of these villains are. Just the performances and some of the writing as well. Like all of it is really nice to me. So I'm trying to think of a way to describe the plot without going fully into detail with all of the events and whatnot, because I don't want to just turn this into a thing where we just go beat by beat, beat by beat, especially since I don't really remember everything in complete sequence. But essentially, Namor's coalition, the Atlanteans, whatever you want to call them, they come into conflict with Shuri and the rest of the Wakandans because they want Riri Williams, who is the this very intelligent girl that can build things. Um, and God, so I'm not. I don't know what it is, but it's like every time Marvel makes a character in the comics in like the last 15 years, they're always bad. And they've been making their way into Phase 4 gradually. But to the actress's credit, I didn't really find her irritating. I think she was probably the least likable of the cast. Um, but I think what that is that she's because like you expect the villain to do things you find irritating or not good. I think with the problem I have with Riri is that she's kind of the this like outsider in a really tight cast. Like everyone from the first movie comes back to where you feel more familiar with them, and even if they do stuff that you maybe might disagree with, you're a lot more understanding of them or on their side typically. And Riri shows up and is like given all of this essentialness to the plot, um, and insults Okoye and talks about the way she looked. It's one of those things where it's like you got this outsider in a cast of familiar faces who is dismissive of the I'm trying to think of what to explain the cast that came before, and is also given more importance than pretty much anybody else that was in it. So I was not a fan of that. I didn't find her to be annoying. I just was. I guess what I would have preferred is if they just had a straight up conflict between. And I know that they have to create a reason for it, but I would have preferred if they focused more on the existing characters because you look at M'Baku. You have Winston do give this really good performance where he's funny, he's entertaining. Every time he's on screen, I'm enjoying him. But he really doesn't get to do that much. In fact, when Namor invades Wakanda and he punches M'Baku, I actually reacted with a bit of fear because I thought they were killing him off. And we'll get into who gets killed off, later. But I guess I was expecting him to have a bigger role because I was paying attention to some of the behind the scenes stuff where they were talking about, Winston Duke negotiated the salary to get, more screen time in Wakanda Forever. And then you also have to remember that he's basically the only major male character that they can use from the first movie. So I was hoping that he would I don't want to say fill the gap that Bozeman left, but at least get some more characterization because it's so interesting to have a person who's like banished from their homeland and tries to start their own thing, but at the same time is not entirely against the people that they came from, like still cares about them in their own type of way. And I was really hoping we would get some more stuff with him, and we just didn't. Um, which is a real shame because I find him very interesting and entertaining, and I like his banter and interactions with the cast. He's a very unique character in this type of story because you've got the royal family, which is the mother and Shuri, the guards who are all loyal to the royal family. But with him, it's you have a character who contrasts because of his gender, because he's pretty much the most prominent male character other than I'm forgetting his name. But you get the idea that I was really hoping M'Baku would have more to do because he fits so uniquely into this story, and he's just there mostly for comic relief and to fill up background shots. We don't really get to see him talk about in what ways he's been affected by by the Black Panther position being abdicated in light of T'Challa's passing, and it's sad, but that's not the first time that a good character's been wasted in Marvel. We know all too well how they like to go down. I mean, we've been waiting for a Incredible Hulk sequel starring Ruffalfo for how many years now? 10. So I'm not even surprised. Even though I was expecting him to have a bigger role because that was what was reported. It is what it is. No, the actor who gave the best performance is probably Angela Bassett as what was it, Ramonda? I mean, from the time she appears on screen, just the rage of having lost your child and your husband, and it's all through these abrupt means. You have your husband get assassinated, and then the your son gets put through multiple life or death circumstances. Yeah, I know Mbaku is a natural, or excuse me, yeah, is I understand. I'm just saying I would have preferred if they gave him more to do with the plot, because as far as I can tell, he doesn't interact with Riri at all. And that would have been a really interesting contrast of like this big, strong guy that, wants to get the throne, and this girl that is like not familiar with any of this royalty stuff and is, completely removed from all of that. Because in a way they're similar in the sense that they're both disconnected from the mainstream Wakanda, but they have some kind of like purpose for coming back to it. I'm just saying they could have done a lot more with him. That's the one character in this whole movie that I wish got more screen time out of anybody. Poor M'Baku. But going back to Ramonda, she was Basset gave the best performance in my opinion with that character. Like you can really feel the anger and the betrayal, like when she scolds Okoye and mentions that, she stood by Killmonger's side when he defeated her son and took the throne. Um, I appreciate little scenes like that, the connective tissue of like, hey, you did this thing in the first movie, and this is why I don't feel bad for you. And look at what I've also sacrificed and lost. So much of her dialogue. I hope somebody eventually makes like a screen pack where they cut all her scenes out because I would love to just watch all of them because there is a lot of raw emotion in the stuff that she says. Like she has this regal demeanor, and even when she's like scolding or upset, it still is refined in a certain way. Like Basset is I think is one of the best African American actresses of all time because I've watched her and other stuff and always been impressed by her performance. I remember she played what was that, Catherine Jackson in that Jackson Family miniseries, and then she was in that awful Green Lantern movie. Um, and I remember her performance as Tina Turner as well. But she's always really good. And I actually remember that one of my criticisms of the first movie was that I didn't think they gave her enough to do. In the second one, they give her more to do without question. And then because superhero movies always have to be edgy, they get rid of her. She gets drowned by Namor when he sinks Wakanda, or I guess rather attacks the throne room, and she does this heroic sacrifice to save Riri. And I was really irritated by that because what's the way of putting it? You have a character who's really not that big in the first movie. She has like a cameo in Endgame. And you bring her back for this one, you give her all these scenes that show the, pain she's had, the frustration she's had, and then you get rid of her or have her throw her life away for a girl that she just met. And I'm not against eventually like killing her off because I don't we don't know how long Bissett would have been willing to keep playing the character. But I guess in my mind, I felt like Shuri, because there are a lot of people who are saying she shouldn't be Black Panther because look at how small she is, and she is very short. Um, but that I guess I felt as if there would be a little you could have because they want to do a third one, right? You could have a trilogy where you've got the kid sister who's like the supporting character to the brother, and then the second one where the kid sister takes over the superhero position, but the mom is still on the throne because she has a way to go. And then a third one where the mom, passes, Ramonda passes, but then Shuri ascends to the throne. It just felt really rushed to have this movie start with T'Challa's passing and then have his mother die, was it before the third? I don't know. It to me, it just seemed as if that should have been saved for a third movie or for some other later period. I just thought it was too soon to do something like that. And I know they were trying to motivate Shuri to want to kill Namor and to make the conflict between them more personal. But to me, it just seems as if there were other ways they could have done that. Um, in a lot of fiction, they'll have a character who looks like they're deceased, like they disappear, they don't find the body, and they just assume they're dead. So if they want to do something like that, and then they could have Shuri like want revenge, but then her mother is still alive somewhere, but is like out in the ocean, whatever. That would still be the same effect, but we would also keep a good character that we could do some more stuff with. So I don't know. It's an interesting example of stuffing. Was it stuffing women into refrigerators, the girlfriend into the refrigerator? It's this trope where you kill off the female character to make another character's story, progress or go further. And that's basically what happened here. Like, yeah, Ramonda got some good scenes, and some I guess some character development from after being like a non-entity in the first film for the most part, but it just seems to me that if you're gonna have a series where one of your leads has passed, um, your actual lead, right, the titular character that died, why would you get rid of one of your main characters in the same film? I don't know. In my gut, I think they should have kept her around until at least the third one because like I mentioned before, a lot of superhero stuff feels rushed. Um, It's like ever since Endgame, where I talked about like the Snap had all these different ideas that were cool and that were resolved or created off screen. It would have been so much better if they kept Ramonda alive and just had Shuri like, doing missions as Black Panther. Um, let's say we go into a third one, it's been like a few years, and then that's when something happens, either kills her or whatever, and then Shuri takes over after that, and she's like now spent years in this role as a superhero and is older and more mature and ready. I don't know. It felt extremely. It just felt like that trope stuffing the girlfriend into the refrigerator, except it's the mother into the refrigerator to motivate the daughter to get revenge. And I feel like Shuri already had enough revenge. I mean, if someone sinks your homeland and you're the ruler, you could say, "Hey, I want you dead for that." Because you could have said he, killed a whole bunch of people off screen that she cared about, or I don't know. To me, it just seemed like a cheap way of making her want to kill a character that she under no other circumstance would want to go and get rid of. Plus, I don't even think, based off the way Namor acts, that he would. I guess to me, it seems really weird that the same character who's got like a fixation on his mother and oh I love her so much and blah 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 would then go and say oh here's the mother of that um, princess of this country I was talking to and actually getting along with well uh goodbye and then I don't know just to me and I know he made the threat earlier but it's going to be hard to even watch because like people say that Killmonger like should have been kept around and redeemed, which I think makes a lot of sense when you consider that he killed Zuri, who is a non-character. He doesn't who did not matter to T'Challa at all, which is why he doesn't even get mentioned or anything after that or in any capacity following his passing. But it's hard to imagine that you're gonna have like Shuri wanting to work with Namor if he's killed her mother. Like as a franchise, I don't know how that's gonna play out. It's kind of like how with Tasm, we know that I hate to keep going back to this series. I just want to give an example with TASM 3 and 4 and Sinister 6 and all the rest of that stuff. We know that Dane DeHaan was going to come back and play Harry again, and they were going to have it to where him and Peter speak, and they never even acknowledged the fact that he killed his girlfriend. And I'm like, how do you have two characters who talk to each other and speak to each other, but then one of them did this to the other? Like it's just that's why I said this stuff just doesn't make any sense to me. I just think there's a certain like, you can have characters who are neutral to each other, but I just think there's a certain point of no return where they just should be enemies, period, and like there should be no further attempt at being friends or working together. I don't know, it's just my opinion. So I don't know. I'm just spitballing. I think getting rid of her is something that they should have either done in a sequel or just not done at all. Because I think Passett gives the best performance of the whole movie. You can really feel the rage from just just like the pain of having lost all this different stuff, but at the same time it's not someone just screaming and throwing their arms up. There's a certain um Shakespearean quality to it, which is and it's so sad to think that like you do a movie where you give everyone that came back from the first one about as much or if not more to do than the first one, and then you get rid of one of them. I don't know. I just think it could have it shouldn't have happened, but whatever. Um, God, let me think of what else do I want to mention. I think that's mostly it. Oh, so there's a scene in the first movie where Killmonger destroys the herbs that they use to get stronger, and that made me think, oh, they're gonna find like some kind of uh, you know what? That was to my knowledge, and again, I've only seen it one time. I don't remember Namor mentioning the snap at all, or Thanos, or anything like that. I don't. So it's ambiguous as to if half of them were gotten rid of, because they could fall under the jurisdiction of, well, there may be a civilization, but it's not exactly. They're what's a good way of putting it? Most Earthlings are not Atlanteans, so there could be a chance that only a few of them were dusted, or none of them were. You know, I mean, heck, you could say all of them were and they just don't remember. I think this actually might be the first movie in all of Phase 4 where there's no mention of the snap because I don't remember anybody talking about it, which is kind of crazy to me because, and this goes back to like wasted opportunities. I remember it being stated that Shuri was taken away as well by the snap, like she was gone. So Ramonda was childless and just ruling Wakanda for 5 years without either her son or her daughter. It was her, Okoye, and I don't know if I don't think they like clarified who else lived, but I know those two did. And it's like I really wish that would have been mentioned because I swear to you, in all of the scenes, she doesn't say anything about I spent 5 years without any children. Just I wish they could have gone into that, like just kind of explain what it was like to lose both of your kids, just with a literal finger snap, just dusted, just gone. By the way, I remember one of the theories was that this movie would be set in the 5 years of the snap, and that it was like a lie that Shuri had been snapped, that she actually was still around, and that was going to be their explanation for why T'Challa wasn't in it before they came back and recast in the third movie. That was one of the rumors that people were circulating. But yeah, we'll get into some more of this stuff. Um, so Nakia shows up and saves Shuri from the Atlanteans, and it's really interesting to me how like I was waiting for her to pop up because the what I heard was that she would be one of the lead characters of the movie, but it never feels that way to me. Again, I need to go and like see what the screen time for everybody was, but I think she probably runs into the same problem that M'Baku runs into, except at least with him, he's there from the start. It takes us a while to see her. And I just don't think they give her enough development and until we get to our post credit scene, but we'll get into that later. Um, like we don't really see we get like she explains a little bit of like what it was like to lose T'Challa, but I wish we could have, I guess, seen some more interactions between her and Shuri, and like just seeing what it was, what type of ways in which they can relate to each other, because there is a thing where when two people lose someone that's close to them, one as a lover or as like a and then the other as like a relative, it can bring people together and actually make them have something in common. So I wish that they had spent more time addressing that. That's one of the reasons why I don't really. I just feel like Riri is such a an inclusion that I would have preferred they not have added, because I really liked the idea that even if someone leaves Wakanda, there's still it's still their home, and the people, even the ones on the crown, still care about them. Like still keep in touch, still try to speak to them. And with Riri, she's so antithetical to all of that. Um, and it's just I wish we could have seen more of that same intimacy, because at least with the first film, you had, what was it, Martin Freeman's character, but it still felt as if you have this group of people who are from this one particular part of the world, who all care about each other and have this unity, and they even if there's a monarchy, they still the monarchy like actually defends their people and tries to be there for them. And I don't think that was really given enough focus in this film compared to the first one. So that's something else I think was kind of irritating. Also, the power levels were kind of all over the place. Like you have Okoye able to fight off the Atlanteans, but like three of them by herself, and then they get right back up, and like, but it's like, how is she like? Because as far as I can tell, the Dora Milaje are just regular humans with, I guess training. So if enough of them come after her, wouldn't she? I don't know. It was confusing to me. I was really just not understanding what why is she so strong. But to go back to what I said about Killmonger, he got rid of the herb, destroyed all of it in the first movie, and then they have Shuri. They're like, "Oh, you need to get stronger," and then they make the herb again. So it's like, what was the point of having Killmonger destroy it if you're just gonna make more of it? I don't know. It's one of those things where you either interpret that scene in the first movie as like being just for dramatic effect and to make things seem more hopeless than they are, or you say that Kugler didn't have this planned out. Because what's the point of destroying this mineral or this syrup, whatever you want to call it, that makes people stronger, if you're like all of it, right? Just get rid of all of it. If you're just going to make it and then and give it to your new main character, I think that they should have just made sure you have to play to her natural strengths, like being with tech. Yeah, because the scenes where she talks about, like invent. Okay. Are you referring to Riri or Sure? They're so similar to each other. Which one are you referring to? Because I was gonna say with Riri, it's as if when she's not around technology, she's at her worst. And I know that she's supposed to be like an Iron Man archetype of like, they're not that helpful without their equipment or whatever. But if they like the part where they have the car, right, that was owned by her, I think it was her dad. Um, all stuff like that's interesting or good because it's like character building. But a lot of the scenes where it's just her talking and interacting with the rest of the cast, I get kind of annoyed by it because it's like they're trying a little too hard to do this thing of, oh, this is not someone who's used to us. Like, yeah, we get it. Sure, she realized that she doesn't have to be the Panther the exact same way T'Challa did. And you know what? That's what makes the scene after she drinks it actually a little bit better in my opinion, because obviously they can't have her meet T'Challa due to obvious, circumstances, but having her meet Killmonger, who wanted revenge, just as she now does after the passing of her mother, I thought was really good. Um, like I'm not, and I already said before, that character was overrated. I thought people were praising him way too much, but his scene in this movie is actually better to me than all of his screen time in the first one. And the reason I say this is because when he talks about how her father would have, handed this girl over to, let him die, to Namor and let her die, whatever, and then mentions how T'Challa was like too noble, and he just kind of goes through the different ways in which all of the crown, the royal family are not the same, and then he makes the equivalency of like, hey, you're like me, you want to get revenge. The only part of that I didn't like is that she doesn't respond by mentioning that yeah, Shuri wants to kill Namor, but she doesn't really talk about like, I will destroy all of the Atlanteans, because that was what Killmonger wanted, where he wanted to take the throne, kill a whole bunch of innocent people, including women and children, um, which is what part of what made him, not that very likable for me. But I really enjoyed that scene, and that's why I said I wish that Killmonger had survived the first movie. I really would, and I was not expecting to show up in this one because they were very coy about it. But I guess I should just remember the No Way Home stuff and expect um, pretty much any actor that says they're not in something or that they, are open to being in it but are not in it currently to just be lying. No, I was not expecting a reappearance from him. It might be my favorite scene in the movie just because of how intimate it is, and the, like making the point of how, the villain and the hero. Like I really was thinking to myself of the of the of the Raimi Spider-Man scene. You and I are not so different. That's basically what Killmonger was telling Shuri. You want revenge, I want revenge, or wanted revenge rather. No, they need to find some way to have him resurrected. I really think if he was alive and actually like in prison or some kind of other capacity of like being in jail, uh and she came to visit him and he told her, and he mentions this stuff, I think it would be a lot more powerful because it would be like he's the corrupter. Like even if he's not the main villain, he still is, someone that has an impact. Kind of at ends with Killmonger. Killmonger is the third best MCU villain. The only ones that are better are Loki and Thanos. It's crazy movie, but at the same time, I feel like the child should be talking to his sister. Right, but you know that they can't actually do that because of the circumstances. Again, I'm going off of the fact that we have a story that is written the way that it is because of real life circumstances. If you remember, Coogler came out about a few weeks ago and said that if Boseman had lived, the film was going to be about T'Challa's life after the snap. So when Boseman passed, he had to rewrite this entire story and center it around Shuri and the rest of the Wakandans. I thought it made a lot of sense that her and her vengeful position would be met by the Black Panther, even if he was only it for a short time, who was very vengeful. And like I said, I would have preferred if, because you know that if Bozeman was still alive, we could have had both. We could have had him appearing in the astral plane, and then Killmonger being in jail, and she goes to see him, and that's when he says much of the stuff here. So you could have had like a tug of war. Like, do you choose the path of revenge? Which path of that? I think that would have really worked too. Whereas one's the corruptor, one is the one that's like pulling them to the light. Yeah, I think that would have been really nice. But again, if Bozeman was alive, we wouldn't even have this movie. Uh, or rather, we would, but it would be very different from what it is. So that still wouldn't have played out. Um, the final battle was all right. The only problem I had with it was the scene where so when she's fighting Namor, and it is hard to believe this little girl, when I say little girl, I'm talking about her height. Like, she's just not imposing. I'll be the first one to tell you that. Like, when she puts on the suit and shows up, and you see how skinny she is in it. I don't know. It's just my opinion. This isn't to say anything nasty about the way people look. I'm just making a comment that uh I don't know. Maybe they could have put some shoulder pads on her or something. But the fight was actually pretty brutal, and the only part of it that annoyed me, I like just did not like. I was like, "Oh my god, this again," is when she gets stabbed. If she looks like a house cat, not a panther. Hey, you know what? I'm gonna give Letitia Wright a pass because she went through a lot of stuff to be in this movie. I mean, first she had the whole like saga where people were trying to get her recast because they didn't like her, saying stuff that was like against the vaccine or whatever. Then she got injured on the set, so I'm not even. I have no problems with her actual performance. Um, so like, while the set gives the best performance in my opinion, she probably has. I'd say that Shuri probably has the best arc because she starts off like saying, Black Panther is dead, and like, obviously like missing her brother, and then by the end of it is willing to take up the mantle to try and get revenge for, and then goes back to like wanting to do something that's not what is indicative of her heart or whatever. So I um I enjoyed her a lot in the film. I think people are saying she's uh too inexperienced to carry a major franchise. Like, well, hell, there are a whole bunch of actors who have either never done anything before, or if they have done something, it's been minor, and then they get their break, and then that's it. So yeah, I'm not trashing Shuri. It's hard to go from a supporting character to the lead character. And you remember, this isn't even like a thing where, because when 2018 came out, you could reasonably expect that you're going to have Bozeman for 2 and 3, and then if they do a fourth one, they'll probably hand it off to his sister. She only really had one film to be like the underling, like the person that's in the chair. So, and not even just from like the perspective of a character, but also as an actress, she's like, you go from supporting to lead with like way more screen time, way more. So sometimes I understand people are under stress. Like, I'm not an actor. I can only imagine what it would be like to play some supporting role where you got maybe like 20 minutes of screen time, 15, to now being the lead character, and all this stuff is on your back, and you have to um, show emotions of all types. Like, you have to show you're happy, show you're sad, while also actually being sad that one of your co-stars tragically passed away. So yeah, I have not one ill thing to say about her performance or her personally. It's I was just commenting that it's really jarring to like see her as Black Panther because I don't think that she's quite physically intimidating enough for it. But um, I guess you could say it plays into the whole agileness of the character. Like I believe she's able to run around do the rest of that stuff, and it doesn't really matter. And it does make sense for it to be her after all. I mean, you had a lot of people that were debating the next Black Panther is going to be M'Baku. No, it's going to be Okoye. No, it's going to be this other person. I remember at one point people were saying that they were going to bring Killmonger back to life, and he was going to take the title, or was going to like revert back. So it was like, why? Why would they? What sense would that even make? Like this person that took the throne by trying to kill the son of the other family is now going to show up and have like some big huge redemptive arc in one. Oh my god. But yeah, it was a decent final battle. um you know what, I actually would say the final battle of this I like way more than the final fight from the first movie, because the first film's final battle to me was marred by bad CGI. People even said it looked like a PS2 game, and by having it, you've seen this before, Dio. It's where the superhero and the supervillain have the same powers. I was like, what am I even looking at? I'm looking at purple Black Panther versus yellow Black Panther. Doom, doom, doom. I could see Killmonger from an alternate timeline trying to save Wakanda, where it gets destroyed. Where it got destroyed in his by his Atlantean. Sure, but I'm saying that you had people who were saying he was going to come back and be Black Panther, like actually return, like come back to life and retake that title. I said before, if they had kept, if Bozeman had lived, and I mean this with in no happy way, the most you would have seen from Killmonger is maybe a mention and possibly a a cameo. Like you were never going to get a 3 or 4 movie arc with him like you did with Loki. Everybody always trashes the Thor trilogy. The only one where the villain actually has an arc and sticks around and matters. Who the hell mentions Ironmonger after the first Iron Man, or Whiplash after Iron Man 2? Exactly. That's why when people were saying that Killmonger was so great, I was like, he doesn't even matter to the overall plot of the MCU. Like nobody talks about him. He was more important in that spin-off show What If than in the actual movie series. Because if I remember correctly, when they're talking about how Okoye like betrayed, or I guess she didn't betray the throne, but she betrayed Ramonda. He doesn't even get mentioned by name. No, I don't. I've never understood why people are so like enthralled by him. He's a character that I think they could have done a lot more with in the first movie, because he disappears from a chunk of that too. And because he has like a slightly sympathetic past, a lot of people act like, yeah, he is Fillmonger. He's filler. They needed a villain for the first Black Panther, um, and they didn't want it to be someone that was white because they felt like it would send the wrong message. So they picked up this obscure comic book villain and got a well-known actor to play him, gave him some sympathetic past, but they had no plan on doing anything with, like, look, you were going to get your trilogy where it was Bozeman's journey as this character, and you were going to see Killmonger maybe like once, if not at all. He was going to be the equivalent of every other one movie villain in the MCU. He's basically Black Panther's Ironmonger slash well, Red Skull did reappear, but he never met Captain America again. But you get the idea. He's his whole like thing of people saying, but he was the reason that T'Challa opened them. It's like, yeah, but you don't see him say, maybe my cousin wasn't wrong. Maybe nobody talks about this guy. It's like he didn't like seriously. If you watch the second movie by itself without seeing the first one, and like let's say they didn't have that one scene in the astral plane, right? If you watch this movie with the version that where that one scene is cut out, you could be forgiven for thinking that the for like not even remembering who the first villain was or who the villain from the first film was because he doesn't matter. That's why I was so happy that Namor survived because they're teasing this idea that he's going to come back and have some more stuff with the Wakandans later on. Um, and they're also, they can use him for stuff with Fantastic Four and the rest of the MC. There's a whole laundry list of stuff they can do with him over the next couple of years. But Killmonger was always going to be, and I don't say this with any happiness because I'm not a fan of killing off characters before you can do everything that you can with them. But he was always going to be a one movie antagonist that showed up, did his thing, and that was it. Yeah, he was Killmonger. Oh, I guess I want to make sure I'm getting his name correct. Before we wrap this up. Oh. You know how there's an actor who you remember their name and then you don't remember their character's name, which I guess is like a lot of people, seemingly. Um, let's see here. Okay, I did get his name correct, Martin Freeman. I wanted to make sure. I wanted to make sure I wasn't screwing anything up. Ross is his name. All right. So listen, in the first movie, Ross was like good comic relief. I thought he was funny. Just his interactions with, he really is like the sore thumb in this cast of African, Americans and various other black people. And he was like a nice little contrast that was there for a reason and had a purpose, and he contrasted very well with everyone that was there in this movie. Yeah, Winter Soldier's been gone. You know what? I was thinking about when we were watching like when what was it? Falcon and Winter Soldier was airing and they had what was her name Ao show up and she had they give her this a little bit of focus and we find out that she was part of Killmonger of Winter Soldier's healing process. Like, oh, that's so cool. So maybe in the second movie she'll have a bigger role, and we'll actually get to see, how she's been doing since the because we don't know if she was snapped away or survived. Nope, nothing. Just I think she might have maybe a few lines. I can't even remember any of them. Like I know she's in it, but she's as minimalistic of a character as she was in the first one, which is really weird too, because it's like you have a character like I don't know if you remember this deal, but Ao has been in the MCU technically now for the longest stretch of time of any Wakandan character because she shows up in Civil War as like T'Challa's right hand lady or whatever. Just when he's getting in his car talking to Black Widow, she's in the first film with barely anything to do, but she's there. She's in Falcon and Winter Soldier, and now she's in this movie and she doesn't even get to do anything. And it's really sad because I very much enjoyed, her in Falcon and Winter Soldier. I thought, okay, well, they're gonna give her, I'm not talking about making her like some main character or whatever, but I mean, it wouldn't have been bad if they gave her some interactions with Shuri and the Koye and the Kia because I don't remember her talking to any of them, and that's really sad because she's been around longer than literally anybody else in this movie. And she just feels like the biggest blank check to me. It's sad. But anyways, going back to Martin Freeman. So they bring him back for this one, and they have it to where he's like, he wants to help Wakanda, but they're like not entirely trusting of him. and you find out that he used to be married to I'm forgetting her name, Valente, whatever, the lady that the Julius Dreyfus character that was in that's like apparently making the was it Thunderbolts? Um and it's so interesting how like you could basically remove all, and I'm getting this wrong again. I want to see it one more time or at least two more times before I fully get of an entire assessment. You could pretty much remove all of his scenes, and you're not really missing anything. Like he never goes to Wakanda. He's important for them finding Riri and like adding a little bit of suspense to the oh my god, Shuri's been kidnapped even though she actually wasn't, she went voluntarily plot. But he doesn't really matter to this movie that much. Like he has maybe two scenes that are important to the plot, and the rest of it is just like this little, I don't even call it a B plot, it's like a C plot of him and his ex-wife slash overarching new main villain or antagonist of the MCU. Um, just it's weird. It's weird that they bring him back and they don't really do much with him besides have him be a plot device, which is really lame because I wanted to see what his reaction was to this war. See him help them again. And I don't know. It was. I think what this film was really missing was like a, I hate to say this, because I don't like those channels at all. They're really annoying. But I think what it was really missing was at least one prominent male character. And it's not even a thing where it's like I demand every story has to have the, because whatever, you have a whole bunch of shows where it's a bunch of guys, but I don't, I'm not going to sit here and act like they needed to have it. But I guess what's sad is that a lot of the guys that come back from the first film who they could do more with, Coogler just seems to not want to do that much with. Like I said, M'Baku is really funny and enjoyable every time he's on screen, but he's not around that much, and he doesn't really get to interact with most of the cast for most of it, which I think is very sad. And I guess Namor fills the void a little bit, but he's a villain and he's removed from actually speaking to any of the major characters besides Shuri and her mother. Um, and even with Martin Freeman's character, like, yeah, he interacts with, Shuri and her mom at various points, but it still is minor, and he still is largely removed from the actual, like, on the ground conflict in Wakanda this time around. So I don't know, it just seems that they needed, in my opinion, or I think rather should have had at least one of those guys that came back from the first movie, give them a little bit, like, I think if M'Baku was, either involved more with stopping Namor, or at the very least got to, speak, like, we could just get some character development, whatever. I think that would have really helped the movie because you have an enjoyable character who was there from the first film. So he's obviously not just there to replace T'Challa. Um, but I don't know. I wish they could have done more with him in particular. Still got to watch Falcon and Winter Soldier on behind. Oh, there's a whole bunch of MCU stuff I haven't even checked out. You got She-Hulk, Miss Marvel, Moon Knight, Hawkeye, all of that stuff I haven't seen yet. So you're not the only one. I remember back in the good old days, we get maybe one, two, three movies a year, and now it's like seven movies in less than 2 years and a bunch of TV shows. I don't know. I just got fatigued from the whole thing. Um, no, I will say the part. So just because I think I merged my positives and negatives into one thing. Overall, I like the movie. I'd give it probably an 8 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10. Um, it has more character development and screen time for Angela Bassett's character Ramonda. which I really enjoy. I think she gives the best performance in this movie, point blank, period. It's got a better villain with Namor, who I think is sympathetic and intimidating at the same time. There's a lot of character stuff with Shuri that I like. The final battle is definitely better than that thing we had at the end of the first one. I mean, I'll take fighting guys that come from the water over that CGI spectacle of two people wearing the same outfit any day of the week. Um, and to me, this felt like a true sequel. Like it took the world we were introduced to in the first movie, gave us a scenario that was different enough to not feel like a retread. Like it's not, oh, someone's trying to retake the crown, whatever. Um, and it feels as if a continuing story that's evolved in some way while still feeling intimate enough to where we have our same like group that we get focused on. So I probably would say I do like this more than the first one, or at least as much. But again, I'm the same person who thought the first one was being like overly praised as this like amazing cinematic achievement. And actually, it's kind of funny because, well, you know what? I'll get into this later. Let me talk about the post credit scene. So the movie ends with Shuri crying right about her brother's passing, and it is sad seeing like all the different scenes from the first film, and because I swear in real life, when you lose someone, you do, and you get like it's almost how to explain this. Um, it that part was really sad to me because I know we don't have cameras recording this in real life usually, but it felt as if you could actually picture the actors seeing that in their own heads because they worked with this person, um, for what was it, over a year? I don't know how long it took to make the first Black Panther, but for well enough time to feel some kind of connection with them, and to just have him just suddenly, not there anymore was like very jarring. And I'm sure they probably did remember their good times with him. So that part was very sentimental. So when you get to the post credit scene, you have Nakia show up with this little boy, and she introduces it as her son, him as her son, and then he says that his name is T'Challa as well. Or toward the end of it, he says that, and then he, calls Shuri his aunt. And then Nakia reveals that T'Challa knew about this child, but they didn't want him raised in Wakanda because of the pressure of the throne, and they had their own funeral for him. So here's what I think is really interesting. When this movie was having a lot of stuff rumored about it, people were saying they're going to replace T'Challa with a woman. But then one of the things people said was, hey, instead of recasting, how about they give him a kid and the kid can grow up and then become, because the MCU is not ending anytime soon, seemingly. So how about we have a kid who is his son that grows up and becomes the next Black Panther, right? And the response by these people is to say, I don't want T'Challa to be a deadbeat parent. And I don't want the kid to come from a fatherless home. It's like, well, hell, they're making this compromise with you because they're saying we understand that you want to see at some point a male character be Black Panther, a male character who you can in your mind think of as T'Challa, even if it's technically not the same character, it's the son with the same name, whatever. And even when they make a compromise like that, something that they can come back to. I mean, remember we had the 5-year time skip um in fiction, so they could easily have it skip to, let's say they do Black Panther 4, right? They could skip to 10 years after the second one, and now the kid is old enough to take up the mantle. We don't know what type of thing they'll do in the future. But it just seems so crazy to me that they did this seemingly with the intention of being like, hey, you know what? Maybe down the line we can have this boy take over, and then you can get more adventures of T'Challa, even if it's not this the one you want, but it still is like in honor of this. Um, you know what? That could happen because he does bear a resemblance to Jonathan Majors, but I don't think so. By the way, Creed 3 is coming out in March, so it's gonna be Kang versus Killmonger. They're gonna be in an alternate universe boxing like they never met in the MCU, but they're gonna be boxing each other in an alternate universe. You get what I'm saying, right? That they gave him a son to compromise with the people who were like they should recast the role, and they're still complaining. They're like, I don't want T'Challa to be a absent father. It's like, what? Well, what do you guys want? Like, if I don't know, just to me, it just seems like if even when you compromise with people and give them some kind of like toss them a bone, right? Hey, you can still have a T'Challa in the future, just not right now. So that's why I said I feel really bad for Ryan Coogler. I feel really bad for the people that just everybody involved. I think they made a good movie under the circumstances that they were in. It's a movie I'll rewatch again when I didn't get anybody to go with me this weekend, but I'll see it again either in theaters or if it comes out on Disney Plus, which it eventually will be on there. But I don't know, it just seems so sad to me that like they don't even, they're just always upset or like if they don't get 100% what they want, it's ruined. It's bad. It's awful. I'd say all those recast people, if they got their wish, they'd be the same ones making videos. This person is a poor substitute for Bozeman. I can already see it. Which honestly is one of the reasons why I didn't really mind that they didn't do it because we know how the internet is, man. They people harass actors and treat them like trash all the time. I mean, go look at how the ones that were involved with Star Wars are treated. It's not even up for debate that whoever if they had gotten someone else to play him to play T'Challa, it would have uh, it would have not been pretty. So, um, what else is there for me to say about it? I guess I probably yeah, because you know how people on the internet are, man. They mess with actors who didn't write these films. They just happen to be in them. Um, they do all types of nasty stuff to the people involved with these things. Because people are not kind. When you mess with their entertainment, they just act like jerks. No, I definitely see it. But yeah, we don't have a Black Panther 3 confirmed, but I think if they probably will make one. And if they do, I don't know what direction they want to go in. I'll certainly admit that I can see a sequel to this more than I could see a sequel to the first one. Like the stuff with the snap sounds cool and all, and I really wish Bozeman was still around to have been able to do that. Um, but you understand where like if you have to make a sequel that's to the stuff with the snap, then that means if you want to watch Black Panther 2 and understand the movie, you have to watch Endgame, which Black Panther is barely in, and Infinity War, which Black Panther is barely in. And before, like between Black Panther 1 and 2, you have to watch like two movies to get it. See, with this, I feel like you can watch it without seeing Infinity War and Endgame and still like understand what's going on. Like it because of how tightly connected it is with the first one. That's one of the reasons why I like some of the DCEU films just as like to me they're more watchable than Marvel stuff because they don't like people were trashing Wonder Woman 1984 for example, but when I watched that after watching the first Wonder Woman, I didn't feel like I needed to see Justice League and any of the other stuff. To just like you watch the first movie, then you watch the second one, that's it. You don't have to watch all the stuff in between. Told you that's the worst problem with these solo films. It's like, oh, you want to watch Captain America 2 after watching the first Captain America? Before you do, you better watch Avengers. Oh, you want to watch Civil War? Before watch like after watching Captain America the Winter Soldier, before you do you better watch Ant-Man and uh Iron Man 3 and Avengers 2. It's like I don't know, it's annoying just all the stuff you have to see to understand this plot point and this story beat, and I don't know, it's hard to enjoy a lot of this stuff by itself because it's not meant to be watched singularly. I remember when I was a kid, I used to like really be excited at the prospect of a cinematic universe, but I'm not joking when I say that after if the MCU ever ends, I really would not mind if we just have solo franchises again. Because I do think in some ways they hurt themselves with all this lore and stuff that they introduced previously. But the problem is that it's all written by different people who a lot of times don't even watch most of the other stuff that's out there. And it's just going to keep getting worse the longer you go on. I mean, are we really going to love the MCU when you have to watch 99 movies to see one of those? That's why I said, like, with No Way Home, for example, that's a movie that if you watch that without having seen all of the other Spider-Man films, you would be confused. You're like, "Who is this? What is that? What are they talking about?" Yeah, but, like, really think about No Way Home for a second. It's a sequel to, Home to Far From Home, which deals with Peter's effects from the snap, which was reversed in Endgame, which was caused by Infinity War, which Peter is in because he was recruited by, Tony in Civil War. Um, Vulture gets mentioned, so you have to also see the first Spider-Man film that was what Homecoming. Then you have to see, if you want to understand the villains, the original 2002 film Spider-Man 2. Um, you do have to see Spider-Man 3 because Harry gets mentioned. You have to see the first TASM because Lizard is there. You have to see TASM 2 because Electro is there. So do you see how just to watch No Way Home, you have required viewing of at least 10 other movies? And I'm telling you, Black Panther 2 doesn't feel that way. Um, like it feels so much tighter connected with the first film. And, I don't know. Coogler had it's interesting to me because it's like he has like a so for example, he compared Zuri to Obi-Wan, which I thought was really goofy because Obi-Wan is a really well-developed mentor character who even though he passes away in A New Hope, or I guess the original film, he still actually matters because you see him in apparitions for the rest of the trilogy, and then also in the prequels as well as one of the main characters of that. And Zuri is literally a guy who appears in the flashback, shows up a few times in the first Black Panther, gets murdered, and then you never hear a word about him again for the rest in any of the appearances of Wakanda related stuff in this series since then. So like nothing. You get what I'm saying? Like it's a bad comparison because Obi-Wan is an infinitely more important character to the story of Star Wars than Zuri is to the story. Not even like the MCU, but just like the Black Panther portion of it. Um, but it's interesting how like Coogler really does see his like the Black Panther films as like his version of some kind of greater, like above, higher than average quality series where it's like, oh, in the first film this happens, this character was this is a reference to and what I think is really interesting about that is that a lot of reviewers who are trashing the second one, especially remember the ones so I talked about reviewers who they're like, this new Marvel movie was awful. Hey, you got your 3 a.m. tickets to go see it on opening day? You bet I do. Come on, man, let's go. That thing of like they hate everything Marvel that comes out, but they keep going to see it. The same people who are saying the second one is bad and oh my god, it's so horrible, they didn't even like the first one. So it's hard for me to take them seriously when I guess it's like this. The narrative they keep trying to paint is that the newer Marvel stuff is not as good as it used to be, right? But it doesn't really work with Black Panther when we know that these same people were trashing the first movie. Dude, I really am thinking about making an edited video showing this despair. Like there was a guy who said the first Black Panther had too many female characters. And now they're saying the second one is feminist and it's about women. I was like, but that was your complaint about the first one. Dude, think of how weird that is. Like, you're offended or like you criticize a movie for having too many women. What? And you're not sexist? You know, that's like a really bizarre thing to say. And remember, they were saying that about the first movie, which was about a man. He was just surrounded by various women. His mother, his sister, female bodyguards, whatever. But it's like, how the hell do you even sit here and try to do this like new thing of, oh my god, this movie is part of an agenda? Prick, you said the agenda was here 4 years ago. Googler also said Wakanda Forever was like The Godfather. Right, you know what I'm saying, right? That he sees them as these higher than average quality MCU films that are like telling their own intricate overarching story. And it's funny because you have people who are pretending the second one is so much worse than the first one when in reality a lot of these people, and you can go and look on their channels, were trashing the first one as not being good. So it's like, again, why would you watch a sequel to a movie that you said you didn't like? You think I'm kidding? Go type in Black Panther is not good or is over, and you'll find all types of videos talking about how bad the first one was, which I don't agree with. But then it's like they go to the second one, they start talking about, oh my god, this is such a part of the declining quality of the MC. It's like, but you're the same person who said the first one wasn't good. So if anything, it's consistent quality or lack thereof, I guess. They watched it so they can do a review and trash it. Yeah, because that's part of the YouTube, money game where they tell you that something is not good and it's so unenjoyable and oh my god, my eyes are burning. But then what do? Every time a new Marvel movie comes out or a new show, do they skip it? Do they go, "Hey, look guys, I just don't want to watch this slop anymore?" No, they keep checking it out because they know that when that stuff comes out, there's a built-in group that doesn't like it because there's always a built-in group that doesn't like anything that's popular. And they can get those outrage coins, right, and stick them right in their pocket. And when I say coins, I'm talking about the money that from the monetization, the ads, the super chats, all that stuff comes from them trashing things that people who are more talented made than. And I said before, I did not like the Dragon Ball Super manga's last arc, the granola stuff. I thought it was boring. Every time I read a plot summary, I said, "This is lame." And so I stopped reading. I didn't go, "Well, chapter 75 came out this week, so I guess I have to review it." And then you see me with 200, 300, 1,000 views, making $5 every, like, come on, you understand the scam, right? They are pretending that this stuff is so awful, but then they're so compelled to keep watching the very thing that they claim is undesirable. If it was so undesirable, you would stop watching it, wouldn't you? Unless you have some ulterior motive, which they do, getting those outrage coins. They watch it, so uh, dude, I'm telling you, one of these days, I'm gonna just make a channel where I hide my face and I just speak with a distorted voice about the new woke SJW Marvel, and you're gonna see me get like 100 subs in 1 week from just making a video trashing all the new films that come out and be like, remember in the original classic Iron Man 2 from 2010 that everyone was mixed on, but is now somehow a masterpiece because I want to do this narrative. That's the funniest part that like a lot of these movie critics, the ones that run these type of channels, if you listen to them talk off the cuff, they trash older stuff all the time. Like this guy was saying the first Thor wasn't good, which I don't agree with. I liked it. Um, this guy was saying that Iron Man 2 wasn't good, Iron Man 3 was, and it's like, okay, so you can't sit here, and this is why I said they don't mention this stuff during their videos, because their narrative is that the MCU has just now become bad when in fact they actually think it was always like subpar or whatever. And only now have they been able to turn a profit, so they create their new narrative. Because they know they would look crazy if they say these movies have been bad almost since they started, but I've just been watching them for the last 10 years because I want to make some money. They know that that would, that would turn people off to them. I wasn't a fan of She-Hulk, but still watched to see how it played out. I haven't seen it. People have been talking about. I only saw that one stupid scene with the booty shaking, which I just thought was like that is really weird. But I mean, I guess what drives me crazy is that from the scenes I've seen of that show, she complains about being like objectified, catcalled, etc. But then you're like the same show shows us her booty shaking. So do you want to objectify her? Do you want us to see her as a I don't know, man. It just seems like it's two different narratives where you can't decide if you want to be seen seriously without the sex appeal, or if you want to be seen, in that other type of way. You know what I'm saying? They don't really know which way to spin it. Yes, it's very inconsistent. Like, you can't have a show where they tell me I should feel bad for this woman because people are catcalling her and objectifying her, but then you in your same show, she's shaking her booty. Like, I don't care if they wanted to make some more adult jokes. I just think they should have been better. And I'll tell you, people drive me crazy. Like, I don't know what they want me to believe with entertainment anymore. This is actually kind of a Wakanda Forever is kind of a dark movie. I mean, there's some jokes in it, but you have impalements and drownings, and um it's actually I'm not gonna say it's like some gritty thing, but it's definitely not as, but I say it's dark. It's consistent with the first movie. It's about as dark as that, except a little bit more bittersweet because of how it ends. By the way, this movie should have just been called Black Panther 2. I'm not even joking. Like the title Wakanda Forever, I don't even know what the point of it is. Yeah, they say it. It's a chant they had from the first film that people liked. I understand, but I don't know what about it would justify making it the title of this movie. I don't know. I just think some subtitles make sense. Like Captain America Winter Soldier is about the Winter Soldier. Civil War is a civil war. Ragnarok is the event that's going to take place that destroys Asgard. Dark World is a dark world. But like I don't know what propelled them to name this movie Wakanda Forever other than just, I guess, wanting to make some cash off of the most famous repeated saying from the first film. Maybe, I don't know. You get where it's weird, right? Because they say that over and over in the first movie, and they say it over and over here too. Not as much, but it's like, what? Why did they? I think what is supposed to be representative of it not dying with one person. I mean, sure. And again, this is a minor criticism that has nothing to do with the film itself, because I don't sit here and cry about titles. I mean, Love and Thunder, after all, which actually did make sense with like the final scene of that movie actually explains why that's the title, because the little girl's name is Love, and Thor is like called so that made sense in context of the story. But I think a better name would have just been Black Panther 2, or Black Panther, I don't know, T'Challa Forever or something. You know what I mean? Like I just think they could have gone with something more original. It'd be like if you made a Wolverine movie called Wolverine the Best at What I Do. It's like, yeah, that's his catchphrase, but why is it in the title? Is it going to be used more here than before, or part of some like arc words or whatever. Because if they called just give you an example, if Spider-Man 2 was ever called like they don't call Spider-Man 2, like let's say you call it Spider-Man um Sacrifice, right? That would be a completely accurate title because Peter, sacrifices being a superhero to have a regular life, and he sacrificed having a regular life to be a superhero. Doc Ock sacrifices himself to save the city from his own creation. Aunt May, tells Peter, you have sometimes um, to do what's best. We have to be steady and give up the things we want, even our dreams. So that title, you see how that one word would be very symbolic of that movie because if there is a theme in there of people having to give up something for a greater purpose than themselves. So yeah, there's I don't know. I just would have preferred if they went with something else because I think that saying is iconic, but it's one that probably I don't know. You know what it is? I'm just I in general I prefer the numbered titles because I think people get confused when you don't do them. Wolverine 2, aka listen here, Bub, the Wolverine story. You don't know how many people I saw that when there's a horror series that doesn't have subtitles or some other series that doesn't have like the numbering, they actually will watch a sequel and think it was the first one. God, these people drive me crazy. Oh man. Wolverine 2, aka listen here, Bub. Yeah, I don't know what I want for Black Panther 3. I think they'll probably just have Shuri go off on some adventure again somewhere and I don't know, maybe I really don't know what they're gonna do because the problem is Black Panther does not, and this goes back to why it's not a good. He's not that much of a character I care that much about. He doesn't really have a rogues gallery that has any memorable villains in it. So I guess they'll have to like implant somebody else. I still can't believe we got Namor in the MCU before we get the actual Fantastic Four. I've heard some people say they want to have Doctor Doom show up in the third one as the villain and have like Latveria versus Wakanda. Um, But I don't know how much that can work without T'Challa because in the comics, T'Challa contrasts very well with Doom due to the fact that they're both like intelligent men who hide their face behind masks. And with regard to like Shuri, I guess maybe see this goes back to why I wish they had kept Ramonda around because if you had Ramonda like get killed by Doom and then Shuri like have the final climactic battle. That would I think that would put a lot more people on board with her characterization because it's in Doom's like you know villainy to do something like that. Um, so I don't know. It's just it's a tough thing, but I really hope that if they end up doing a sequel to this, we get some more M'Baku. Like he more than any other character, I was really frustrated by the role of. I think he has enough longevity. Even if you only make him Black Panther, he contrasts so well with the rest of the cast, and like Winston Duke is just like a scene stealer that it would be nice to see some more of him. They were talking about making a Wakanda like series on Disney Plus. I hope that he's in it and has like a major role or something. I'm foreseeing him whenever they want. Whenever he shows up, I'm excited. Oh no, it's just kind of tough that they had some really awful circumstances come up. Like first the movie comes out and is an unexpected success, the first one, and it gets announced to have a sequel that's set like, 4 years later. Then midway to the sequel being released, they're and a few months before principal production even begins, their lead actor passes. So they have to rewrite all of the stuff they had before. And then they get into some conflict when their now lead actress like doesn't want to, get the COVID stuff. It just seemed like this movie had a lot of things going against it. So the fact that it came out and we've got a film that I think has a good villain and decent focus on most of the ones that came back from the first film, and certainly a much better final battle than that thing at the end of the original, um, is really a miracle in and of itself. Like I can't think of another MCU movie where so much stuff went wrong, and they churned out something that I think was decent, was good. They already used the White Wolf for Bucky too. That's another Black Panther villain. You understand what I'm saying, right? This movie had so much going against it from start to finish. You could, I hope that whenever, if this ever, because it'll get released on home media, but I hope that if when it does get released, there's like some kind of behind the scenes documentary or something, because there so much stuff happened with this movie in the background that was not good and that could have really hurt it and gotten it canceled. I mean, there was a second when after Bozeman died where people were wondering if they were just going to say, "All right, forget this movie. We're not doing it," which is something that was encouraged. I was originally like making fun of the idea of doing a sequel without the lead actor, but I think that was more so that because you never really have had anything like that in the MCU. Like you had three Iron Man films, and then he gets taken out in some movie that's not his own, but still, like you had three films of him. There's no successor, nothing like that. And then you had Captain America, where yeah, there's gonna apparently be a fourth one, but it's Wilson as him, and like whatever. Like it still is something that was like earned over time because we only had T'Challa for like major appearances and like two minor ones. I was like, there's no way they're gonna hand off that title of Black Panther to somebody else. So one of those supporting characters from the first movie in one film, and sure enough, they did. And again, there's some stuff that I think could have been better, but it's none of this is said with malpractice. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this movie fails on every level and it doesn't understand. I'm not one of those channels. I'm going to sit here and tell you what I like, what I didn't like, and I'll draw my conclusion at the end. And I have to admit, I was more excited for this film than probably any movie in Phase 4 besides No Way Home, because that had Alfred Molina. Um, but I was really interested in how this would turn out, and it went in a way that I was fairly satisfied with. I was not expecting Namor to be as interesting and as well performed as I thought he was, or as intimidating as he appeared at certain points, and it really delivered in that aspect too. So I'm still debating if I like this more than the first one. Um, I think what I'll have to end up doing is finding some way to watch them back to back, and then that'll be how I draw my conclusion. Um, but it's because it's hard to just like be like, oh, I don't like this, oh, I like this, I like because I don't want to keep going back and forth since I've only seen one time, and I've seen the first one like 4 times, I think, 5 times. So I'm probably um I'm probably just gonna have to see them back to back and then draw a conclusion, but I won't be able to do that until like next month or something. The other part of this is that it's really interesting to me that you can have an entire like group of people who want to see a movie fail. So what I mean by that is I gave you the issues I had with the film, but I do want to see a third one made because I think that gives them a chance to correct some of those mistakes. They can make another movie with a compelling villain, good focus on your core cast. I'll be satisfied. I've given you specific things that I think could have been improved. A lot of these channels for like months and months and months, they were talking about Black Panther 2 is ruined and they're gonna have some woman take over. And what is this SJW got? And I'm like, what in the world are you like? The movie isn't even out yet. And you know all this stuff about it. Like, you would think some of these people morphed into future Trunks and they just went in their little time machine and saw it this week and then went back and were warning us of the apocalypse. And it's like, guys, it's a movie and it's a movie that isn't even out yet. They were saying trash about it before the trailer even was released. So I said, I just get tired of all the reactionaries. Like, just calm down, you know? That would be really funny if Coogler is trolling with the son, where it's like, "Oh yeah, T'Challa has a son that we will never see again after this post-credit scene. He'll just go back to Haiti with his mother." Like I said, my theory is this: you're gonna get a third movie. So Shuri is gonna be Black Panther for like the foreseeable future, right? For a third film, maybe a fourth one. Um, don't know if Letitia Wright's gonna be in the Avengers movies, but I imagine that she will, or most likely will be. And then whenever she decides to step down, this could be in 5 years, 10 years. I think probably 10 because I don't think she has that much going on besides Marvel. Again, I could be wrong. I haven't looked at her filmography. This is my conclusion. But whenever she decides I've had enough of this, I'm ready to move on, they're gonna have the character. It might not be the same boy, growing up, because they like to recast children all the time. But they're gonna have the same character show up and take up the mantle in the place of both his dad and his aunt. So I really think that Letitia Wright did like I could see her doing this for a while. See, Bozeman, I explained before, and this isn't me trying to be mean or nasty, but I always felt like if he had lived, you would have had him for 2 and 3, and then he would have been in some really, really crowded Avengers movies where he gets, like, 5 minutes of screen time, no standout moments. Um, and then he would have been replaced by his sister, so that would have been in, like, 2000, I don't know, 26, 25, 27, whenever the Avengers movies are finished coming out for this, like, for, the 5th and 6th ones. So, this has changed the trajectory in a very interesting way where we could conceivably end up spending more time with Shuri as Black Panther than we did with T'Challa. Um, and I wish Boseman had lived. I wish he could have still been around, but I do think there's a chance that we can get some decent material out of this. But again, I know that people are going to just trash it anyway because they didn't get what they wanted. So it is what it is. Well, Dio, I hope you've enjoyed the stream. I gave the movie an honest assessment. I tried to be as fair as I could. And thanks for showing up. I'm going to go and do some other stuff. And I will be streaming again on Saturday. So have a good rest of your Monday.